Antoine, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 mistakes that I made while on the path towards pursuing pathology as a career. But before I get into the video, I just wanted to take a quick moment to recognize the star of the show, this twist out. Tell me this one ain't lit. Tell me this isn't cute though. Look at my gray. It's so sexy. Look at that. Over here looking like a black rogue over here. Like a silver fox. Like a glittery snack. Anyway, let's get into it. The first mistake that I made was not fully educating myself on what it takes to get into medical school. When I was applying for medical school, so we had the primary application that we would send in, and after you submit your primary application, different schools would send the secondary application to you based on what information was submitted in the primary. Well, I, Miss can do anything, which is not a bad thing. But I just was like, oh, if I want to go to medical school, I just go to medical schools. I'll just apply and, it'll be great. Not realizing that I was so underqualified. If you don't know, I'm a first generation physician. No one in my immediate family has ever gone to medical school. I didn't really have a lot of people to really speak with about what it would take for me to get into medical school. I have a couple like uncles by marriage who are physicians, but at the time I wasn't really communicating with them regularly or anything like that, and certainly didn't have mentors who are already in medicine who could look at my scores and my application packet and say, hey boo, you need to take a little moment and work on this real quick. At the time I sought counsel from my counselor who in my college was responsible for working with individuals who were interested in medical school. And this is my own perception, but it seemed as though there was a lack of interest because I didn't have the stats that would make me a competitive medical school applicant. So I was pretty much on my own. Here I am with my little 2.6 GPA or whatever it was, thinking that I was just gonna apply and then I would just get in. For some, this may be a no-brainer, but for someone like me who didn't grow up with individuals who knew these things, it was a whole new world for me. It wasn't until after I submitted my primary application that I really was like, well, let me just go and look and see what's what. And eventually realized that, girl, you ain't getting into med school. So that was the first mistake that I made. And I feel like I lost a lot of time trying to strengthen my application because I did not realize early on that I would need to do such a thing. So if I had known earlier on, if I had done the research earlier and figured out what it would take for me to get accepted into medical school, I could have started working on strengthening my application much sooner and probably would have gotten in earlier. Now, that being said, the struggles that I struggled in school was multifactorial. And so there were other things that were going on that affected my ability to perform. However, I do think lack of education was a significant contributing factor. The second mistake that I would say I made when trying to pursue a career in pathology was not fully understanding the things that I should consider when selecting a specialty. You may or may not have heard me talk about this, but before I started medical school, I wanted to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. And I wanted to do that because I felt like it was just really challenging. I knew I wanted to do surgery because I love to work with my hands. I was really interested in anatomy. It was a prestigious specialty. And back then I actually cared about that. I don't now. And of course, surgeons make that money. So I was like, sign me up. You mean I can combine all these things and make bread? Like, absolutely. I spent some time shadowing I can't remember exactly what subspecialty I was in, but I know that the patient that I was seeing during this time was going to have to go to surgery. So that really opened my eyes to trauma surgery, and I was so interested in that because there was that element of acuity. I still would get to work with my hands. I loved having to think fast about what's going on with this patient. How do I stabilize them? What procedures am I going to have to do? And so I was really in love with the rush and the kinesthetic aspect of surgery. Now, what I did not realize was that I was going to have to be taking 24-hour calls. Okay, I was going to be in the hospital all day long, or at least just about. I did not know any of these things. And so here I am, a medical student interested in surgery. And also, let me just throw in there, along the lines of me not knowing what it took to get into medical school, I just had this naivete, like not understanding that in order to be taken seriously as an applicant for a surgical specialty, I would need to have really good test scores. Now, this is something that, even though, it's well known that surgical specialties are really competitive and, a lot of times you need high scores to get into those programs. That's never something that really deterred me, because I just knew, like, I struggled academically for a very long time, and I knew that I had low scores. I knew I had failures, all that kind of stuff, but I never believed that I would not be able to secure the job or the career that I wanted to secure. Like, that just was not an option for me. So that was less of an issue. But the bigger issue was me not understanding what it would be like to actually live the life of a trauma surgeon. I get on my surgery rotation during medical school, do. And you're able to pick an elective to do 3 weeks, and then you have to do 3 weeks of general surgery. So for my elective, obviously I chose trauma surgery. So I started with the 3-week trauma surgery rotation, okay? And I loved it. I had such a wonderful time. It was challenging, it was tough, but it was exactly what I wanted it to be. I was on my feet. I was over there cutting clothes off people and, running and getting this and getting that, and following up on X, Y, and Z, making sure things were ready before the patient came in the trauma bay and all this stuff. I was just like, I was so thrilled. But child, them hours, I can do most of these hours if it means I get to do this job, because I love this job. But then I found out about them 24-hour calls. And I was like, on second thought, abort mission. I need my sleep, child. I need my sleep. The trauma surgery ended, and then I had to move on to the 3 weeks of general surgery. Now, it was the general surgery rotation that did it for me. That was when I was like, I'm very much okay cutting the cord on this one. I think I've mentioned this in a previous video, but I didn't even have time to eat. I would find myself having to sneak and eat snacks because there was just no time to have like a real meal most days. And when you're interested in a specialty, you have to show that interest. You have to like really go out there and put the hours in and all that, at least. So I wasn't about to be caught eating while my patient was in the OR, or I wasn't about to be caught like taking a break while we still got patients that need to be pre-op. So I was putting the hours in. And yeah, like I lost like 10 pounds in those 3 weeks just from not eating. And I was like, I can't do this. I was waking up at 3:45 a.m. so that I could get to the hospital by 5 a.m. so that I could pre-round on the patients, have everything in the room ready for when the residents came through to see the patients, made sure I knew what was going on, any updates that I needed to be aware of, that the team needed to be aware of. I had to make sure I had all that together. And child, still, even after getting to the hospital that early to do all that stuff, was scrambling, like trying to figure out like, well, where's the tape? Like, it was like, it just seemed like no matter what I did, there was just something. Even if it's only 5 years of my life, if I do this, I may die. Sometimes you can't prepare for these things. Sometimes you have to go through these things and really experience the rotation before you actually know what it's going to be like. But certain things I could have learned from talking to people, talking to other residents, talking to attendings, looking online to see what people's experiences were, etc., which I did not do. And so, you live and you learn. The third and final mistake that I'll talk about in this video that I made while trying to pursue pathology was not spending enough time learning who I was before trying to determine what career would fit the person that I am. One piece of advice that I always give medical students these days, or just anyone who's trying to figure out what kind of career they want to go into, is spend time actively trying to learn yourself, learn who you are, learn what your interests are, learn the things that make you happy, learn the things, your values, what's important to you in life. How do you want to spend your time? What do you want to be remembered for? What environments do you feel most comfortable in? These are the types of questions that I wish I had asked myself sooner. I was so caught up in other things. And as I was a young person, this is life. Like you go through life, you figure out things about who you are, and that's not something that you can just will into existence. You have to go through experiences. You have to really take time to reflect. You have to really understand how you think, all these kinds of things. But I do wish that I had spent more time actively pursuing a better understanding of myself before deciding what specialty I wanted to pursue. I think I deep down knew that I don't like having to talk to people when I don't feel like talking to people. You know what I mean? I feel like I knew deep down that I was an introvert, but for whatever reason, I don't know. I didn't accept it because I was very outgoing and social when I wanted to be. I just did not identify as an introvert because I didn't have a full understanding of what it meant to be an introvert. So in my mind, those two could not go hand in hand. And other people would always label me as an extrovert for those reasons. But it wasn't until I was in my final year of medical school that I, did my pathology rotation, and I realized that part of the reason why I was having such a good time was because, one, there were not that many people around. I mean, let's just be real here. Too much going on. I used to think that I like that, but I don't. Smaller teams. Even though I came from a creative background, I didn't realize that the things that stimulated me as a creative could be incorporated into my actual job as a physician. I very much enjoy beautiful imagery. I love looking at gorgeous pictures, colors, like anything with colors. I'm just like, I learned that working in small teams wasn't even going to be enough for the whole day. Like I needed time to myself. And that was a huge thing that I needed to learn about myself. Yeah, I think that was, should I call it a mistake? I don't know. We all go through these things in life, but it is definitely something that I wish I had done early on and been more active about when I was younger, or when I was first, trying to pursue medicine. Because it would have saved me a lot of trouble, heartache, time, and energy in the long run. So that concludes this video. Those are three big mistakes that I made when on the path to trying to pursue my career as a pathologist. It happens, love, but look at me now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know if any of this resonated with you. What are some of the mistakes that you made when you were pursuing your own career? Also, let me know if you'd like for me to make another video talking about some of the other mistakes that I made along the way to becoming a pathologist. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Much love to you. Wishing you all the best. Oh yeah, by the way, if you haven't already, please like the video if you liked the video. If you didn't like it, and if you haven't already subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so that whenever I post a video, you get notification that it actually went up. Ma'am, I asked you to have a seat. Girl, don't listen. Anyway, Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one. Take care.